Great. Thanks, Jenny. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to RBCM at Outside. I think I called this one Fowling Communities. No, Fowling Around. Welcome to this program today. My name is Liz Crocker, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. And this program is webinar format if you've never joined us before, if you're in the Zoom room. So we can't see or hear you, but you can ask questions through the chat. And if you're joining us on Facebook, you can comment and ask questions through the Facebook as well. And my colleague Jenny Arnold is in the room and she can help send any questions over from Facebook to make sure we get them. So I was asking people that were here early if they could guess where I was. So the museum is in Victoria. So if you know Victoria area, you might recognize this. We're down here at Fisherman's Wharf in Victoria Harbour. And I'm going to, before we get going, I'm going to let you know about, I want to recognize and acknowledge that this Fisherman's Wharf and Victoria are on the territory of the Lekwungen speaking people, also known as the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations. So very grateful to be here today and to be able to live and work in this beautiful region, and also very thankful that it is again not raining on us today. So I also wanted to let you know about the next RBCM Outside program, which is March 10th. It's called Sting. Information is up on the website now, and it's all about stinging nettle. Everything you'd ever wanted to know about stinging nettle. And I'm going to have with me our Royal BC Museum botanist, Heidi Gartner. She's the botany collections manager. So join us for that one. That's going to be really fun. But as I noted, for some of you early folks, you might be able to see in the corner of my screen there, an intrepid biologist down on the dock. And that is Heidi Gartner, another Heidi. And so she's waving, and I'm going to go down to Heidi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my mask on, and then she's going to take hers off, and she's going to be talking most of the time. I'll be behind the camera. But Heidi is the collections manager for the marine invertebrates collection at the Royal BC Museum, and she's also a researcher at the museum. And so she is going to tell us all about this wild and wonderful world of fowling communities. I had no idea about this. I mean, I had an inkling, but I didn't know what they were called. So let's find out a little bit more. Let's go meet Heidi. So what I need to do is walk towards her. Here we go. And I'm popping my mask back on, and I'm going to stay distant from her. And I'm going to try not to fall into the water or trip on the dock. Here we go. Lots of salt on the dock. It's been a bit icy. There we go. Getting closer to Heidi. So I've popped my mask back on. So Heidi, hi. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Fowling communities. Well, maybe tell us a bit about yourself, and then you can let us. Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm the invertebrate collection manager at the Royal BC Museum. And so my job is to study the animals without backbones. So things like crabs and sea stars and all that fun stuff. And my main part of my job is studying biodiversity. So the diversity of life that we have in invertebrates in BC. And that involves field work a lot of the time, going out and seeing what's there. And sometimes field work isn't as far away from home as you'd imagine. So a place like this, right in the urban center of Victoria, can be a really neat place to look for animals. One of the things that I've been active in research is invasive species or non-native species that come into BC, usually by some sort of human-mediated method. So if you think about boat hulls or the aquaculture industry, or if you heard about ballast water on really large ships, these are all ways that animals can move from their native range to a new range, and I study what comes into BC. So what I look like at here is there's a lot of human activity, and so we can look at the animals that live on the submerged structures. So fowling communities, which we were talking about before, are the communities of animals that live on any sort of hard man-made structure that's submerged in the ocean. And then I look for what lives there and if there's anything invasive that's new to BC or rare to BC. Just to give you an example, well, I've got a really good spot picked out further on, but I just noticed here, I'm not sure if everyone can see, But a good example of fowling communities, you can just see across the way, there's, you know, a submerged buoy, and there's things growing on it, such as, oh, you're going to go a little bit lower.
Jenny, you let me know if that's working at all. I'm going to try to zoom in.
Yeah, the zoom in worked.
And you'll need to go lower. I'm actually looking right here, so
Yeah,
I see that.
I don't know how clear that is.
You just need to move the camera down a little bit, Liz, and then we'd be able to see it.
So the mussels and the barnacles that are on there.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
Yeah, so
Okay.
things like that. So there's a lot of sessile things, or things that can't move, that make up these communities. So barnacles and mussels are really good examples. And then they create all this extra structure and habitat that mobile animals can live in. So here's an example here. I've got a rope that looks like it's been submerged. What's really fun to do is to simply pull it up and see what's living there. So I'll show you a really good example later on, but even just in this, Jenny, do you have an opportunity to show what a feather duster worm was? So feather dusters, this is what all these long pokey brown bits are that you're seeing sticking out. These are actually the casings for worms. And Jenny might be able to share a screen of what these animals look like when they're underwater. So you're seeing all those brightly colored branches.
Gorgeous.
Those are actually the feeding structures of these worms, and they poke them out of the ends of these tubes. And when they're in the water, but if a predator comes along, or if for some reason they come out of the water, like a human bugging them, they can pull into theirs. And actually this one, the feather duster's out, and if I poke it, it might go in. Oh, there we go.
Oh,
One more time down here, let's see. Boop. And there's that worm pulling its body into its protective casing. Oh, here's neat. This just fell off of
oh, what is that?
a little dock shrimp. So this is one of
Can
the,
you hold still for a sec? There you go.
oh yeah, that's gonna be hard. An example of one of the motile animals that can live in and amongst
And a
these.
what kind of shrimp did you call it?
A dock shrimp.
There it goes.
Yeah.
Is that a native species?
Yes. So an example of a non-native species, I think I saw some here, is this animal
Okay.
right here. So I study a weird group of animals called sea squirts. Jenny, there should be a slide about what a sea squirt is, which is, believe it or not, these animals are of all the invertebrates, the things that are mostly closely related to humans, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah, so they're basically filter feeding sacs where they just draw water in through one siphon and shoot it out the other. Jana, you were doing great if you can get it back.
Yep. There she's- Thanks, Jenny.
And then
There we
this
go.
is a colonial form where there's like the bottom left there. There's multiple little individuals embedded into one comic tunic. And how they're related to us is when they're a baby, they have all the chordate characteristics. They have the dorsal nerve cord, the pharyngeal gill slits, but they lose it as an adult. So
And so those are things we have when we're embryos?
yes, and technically still have.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. So let's go look at one other place where I saw a really good example of what you can see as well as what we just saw on this one. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Okay.
So who knew what you could find when you're skulking around a wharf?
So that's the thing I'd encourage is you can actually do this yourself. Of course, being respectful of boat
Right.
owners and all those
Right.
sorts of things.
You don't want to go hang out where people are living. But we were going down to some commercial boats.
Yeah. So we're going down here some fishing vessels that are here in and out a lot throughout the season. So I've seen a good example of it, what we call a dirty boy.
Oh,
A
okay.
boy that's been in the water for a long time. So it's had a chance for these communities to grow up.
Huh.
Yeah. Now, one neat thing is I study invasive tunicates, and I showed you an example of one earlier. The example of museum collections helping to serve science and research, it's a really neat story tied here to Fisherman's Wharf. So I started working with a group where we were finding these invasive tunicates all over the province, and they were spreading. And we didn't have a good timeline of when they came to BC. And I went through a museum collection and was able to find the earliest record on our coast. And Jenny's sharing some invasive tunicate pictures because the thing about invasive things is they're not meant to be here, but they're usually animals that are really good competitors. And so they can have really bad ecological and economic ramifications. So for example, what you're seeing are pictures of aquaculture specimens and aquaculture gear, and it's really heavily fouled in these invasive tunicate species. So this is causing loss of millions of dollars in the east coast of Canada and in the US for loss of aquaculture gear and stock. So, yeah. And not to mention outcompeting local native species, suffocating things like you'll see it can grow over mussels, that sort of thing.
So where would our native tunicates grow? Do they not grow on artificial?
They can, yes. So we might
surfaces?
see some as well.
Okay. But the other ones, the non-native ones are out competing them.
Yes. So usually a really good invasive species has a wide tolerance to things like salinity and temperature. They're usually really good competitors. So they usually can kind of compete and adapt with other species.
Okay.
Oh, look at this. So,
if only you guys could smell it. You
someone
folks at home.
recently was doing some work.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
Those
but I'm
colors.
actually going to look at this one and see if we can get a fresh community. So this is literally what I do for fun sometimes.
Yes, this is what you do when you hang out with the marine biologists.
Sorry, Liz. Thank you.
Got it?
Oh,
wow.
okay. So look at all these animals growing on this. Boy, that's been so
Here, I'm going to
much.
do a far away so people can see what we're
Yeah.
looking at here. And then we'll...
And I'll just point out some of the things, and if anyone has any questions, they're welcome to ask.
Mhm.
But for example, really good founding members of fowling communities are mussels. Mussels attach to substrates with something called byssal threads. So if they get ripped or torn off, they can reattach and move around, but they're pretty much stationary when they're strong and held on. And what are you seeing now?
Yeah.
Oh, here's a fun find in amongst these.
Oh, look at that.
There's a chitin. Has everyone seen that fun little mossy
Yeah, I think
chitin?
we can see that pretty good.
Yeah. So chitins are closely related to snails. Instead of having the big coiled shell, they have these 8 articulating plates. So I'm not sure if you can see that well on there.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah,
So how many different kinds of chitins do we have on the coast? Like lots? Or...
lots, but not, I can't remember the exact number. I'm going to say probably like 40 species maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And see, when you take them off, this is their head up in the top here.
Oh, okay.
That's their little mouth. And they actually have this really cool tongue called a radula that has like hardened teeth on it. And so they are lick algae off of this.
Okay.
So it's going along and looking up that biofilm and that algae and that sort of thing.
And slugs have those too, right? Slugs have radulas.
Yes, they do, because they're same family. And then they got this big muscular foot. And then this one's not doing what I expected it to do, which is they curl up into a tight ball and can,
okay.
It's starting to go.
Okay. And there was actually, I saw a question go across, Jenny. Can you read that out? I missed it.
Yeah, the question is, are you allowed to collect local invertebrates for a home cold water aquarium?
Ooh.
No, you are supposed to have collecting permits for that sort of thing.
Good question. Yeah, because I'm sure folks would, it's a really common question probably.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's that orangey? Is that what we were looking at before?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that's one of the species of invasive tunicate there, as well as this brightly colored one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's just covering that, is that a tube worm
That's
casing?
another, yeah, feather duster tube worm casing. And that one's called the violet tunicate.
Okay. Jenny, I think is sharing a picture.
Yeah, that one's the violet tunicate.
Invasive tunicate.
Yeah, and it's invasive. And it's zooids, all the little tiny individuals can form like chains or lines. Whereas if we can focus over here, notice how these ones look like stars or flower shapes. That helps me tell apart the difference between the different species as well.
Let me just stop moving and get in there. Okay. Stars or flower shapes. I don't know how clear that is on the screen. What is that, a star or a flower shape? That's what
I'm saying. So this one is the golden star because they either look like stars or flowers.
You're
depending
using
on
the
how
same
many.
magic. I got it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Some people say stars, some people say flowers.
Okay.
Whereas the other one we were looking at over here is more like just rows.
Uh-huh. Or this one here?
Yeah.
Is it that one?
Yeah. And then what other fun things can we see? So we have all the feather duster worms that we saw before. Here's more of those tunicates, the invasive ones.
Oh, yeah.
And we have another little baby chitin over here.
So would you think this community is old? This has been growing for a while? Like, is that
a
big?
relative term?
Right.
But yes, this is like a buoy that has been submerged for some time.
Okay.
For the mussels to get this large, for the barnacles to be this large on top of the mussels, for the feather dusters to grow up that big. But a lot of invertebrates don't live the same length that, you know, we imagine a lot of mammals or animals or that sort of thing do. Although there are exceptions, which are always fun.
What's that attached there to that gooey?
Okay.
Is that a snail?
This is actually another invasive tunicate.
Oh, okay.
And then the orange is something called a sponge. So sponges are one of the weirdest invertebrates. They don't have any organs or tissues or anything like that, but they can do amazing things, and they're filter feeders of waters. And then our curator, Dr. Henry Chung, is a expert in hydroids. So that's what this long, almost like plant looking thing is. It's actually an animal. So if we were to have a microscope, which sadly we don't right now, and we were zoom in on each of these little ends, there's tiny little polyps, almost like coral polyps on the ends of each of those branches. And that's what he studies, is those animals.
Yeah, I've seen Henry get very excited about hydroids.
Oh yes, well now you all know. You have an example. So no shrimp are popping out of me at this time, which is so do you want to try one more and just see what we can see?
Sure, yeah.
How are we doing for time?
Good question. Let me check. I'll let you put that, drop that back in. We've got about 15 more minutes.
Okay.
We have some more time. Any other questions? Please let us know. Are we in your way? Oh, no, you're good. It's Renee. Oh, that one looks completely different.
Yeah, so that's the other amazing thing. Just right beside each other, they can look really different. So this is a lot of the hydroids here, the long branchy ones.
What's that? Is that anything? Oh, is that?
No.
No.
That's actually a bit of
maybe.
Yep, plastic. So plastic solution. That's the star shape again, or flower shaped one, invasive tunicate. And then here's a good example of mussels with the byssal threads. So I'm gonna see as I pull up here.
Oh, yeah.
So they have a structure called a foot that they use to plant out these byssal threads to attach to a substrate, and then it's got a juvenile near it. And it's it can reattach to different things now that it's been dislodged.
Okay. That's amazing that it can reattach.
Yeah.
What about all the little hairs on this guy? What's that?
That would have been other ones trying to attach to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the remnant hairs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Now, another weird group that I study are these ones, these orange kind of colony looking things. And they're called Bryozoans, or moss animals. And they have tiny little individuals in there that pluck food out of the water column with little tentacles.
Huh.
Here's a barnacle. I'm going to tell you a fun thing about a barnacle that people may not know, is barnacles are actually closely related to things like crabs. So when a barnacle is out of the water, it seals itself up with these incredible plates. If you've ever walked on barnacles, you know how hard and strong these are. Well, these 4 on the top can open up. And so when this is under the water column, it opens up, and a structure called cirri, which is equivalent to a crab's legs, comes out, and they feed out of the water column like this. And so, yeah, they're basically crabs that are stuck on their backs forever that can only ever stick their legs out to feed.
I've heard those described as feathery feet.
Feathery feet.
Feathery
they are
feet.
feathery feet. And if there's anyone appalled by this, but the PG version, well, not so PG version is barnacles are one of these animals that they can't move. They're stuck where they are for life. There's cues to help them settle and live where they are. But if you think about it, you still want, as an animal, to reproduce, mate, make babies. So how do you do that when you're stuck in one place? So if you imagine there's a whole bunch of barnacles here, barnacles actually have the longest penis to body ratio of any animal, which is...
I've heard this.
It's amazing.
It's a fun fact.
It is a fun fact. So unfortunately, this one's on its own. So I hope it had mates at some point, but they literally can stick it out and plop it around, feeling for their neighbors. And they're also hermaphrodites. So they're both male and female.
Interesting.
And so that also gives them the advantage of being able to reproduce, because you're not just, one male and the females, or one female amongst all the males. They're all kind of equal opportunity for each other. So
what a great survival strategy.
yes, and there's some actually really cool YouTube videos.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
So
Be careful though.
Like a strange thing to Google.
Be
but
careful though if you're
so,
Googling those.
It's actually really neat to see. And also you can see barnacles feeding. If there's really strong currents, they can change their feathery feet to like face the currents, or if it's a slow current, they can do this. So it's really neat to see these of something that looks kind of like a rock.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing that how they adapt to survive.
Yeah.
Pop that one back.
Yeah. Let's do one more just in case there's anything else exciting. I don't know if you all can hear, but there's a seagull going. I think it thinks I'm bringing up dinner or lunch or.
Yeah, I can't see where it is, but it's eager.
This one's heavy.
Ooh, there's a few things on there. Oh, woo! Heralds of the job, getting wet.
This is a better example of all these barnacles. This is actually a different barnacle species. Notice how it's got like these kind of thatched look. That means it's semi-balanced. Different species. So these are the weird things that biologists have to look at, different characters to identify it.
Sorry to interrupt you. All three of those are the same species?
Yeah, they're all the same species of barnacle. And then let's just have a look. Oh, we seem to be in chitin heaven. The other day I looked and there was an urchin in here, and it was so neat to see an urchin. So I'm kind of looking for some fun things that live in amongst all this rubble.
Yeah. Is this a tunicate? It almost looks gold or silvery.
Is not. It's a sponge again.
Oh.
So one of the neat things about tunicates is if you touch them, they're kind of squishy and kind of oh, this is one. Oh no, sorry, that's a squishy bryozoan. But it's growing on plastic. So animals are adaptable.
Yeah. So and I guess these places like human harbors for our boats create these new environments where animals will come in and take up space.
Here's limpets. Does anyone know what a limpet is?
Any limpet guests out there? I wonder what they're related to.
Oh,
Limpets. Well, it looks a bit like a chitin. Is it related to
it is related to a chitin. So chitins and limpets are both related to snails. So again, it's one of these ones, if we turn it over, it's got a big muscular foot under there and this little mouth, just kind of like snails do. Yeah.
Neat.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Little
there
splash.
It goes.
Sorry about that, everybody. So some fun things you can do at the dock.
Yeah.
There was a neat little cluster of feather duster worms down there. Do you want to
Sure.
watch me poke one for fun?
Yeah, let's see if we can. I'll stretch the camera out over the water.
Without falling in. And if not, try it sometime when you're
that's why they're.
Right here. Would you be able to see this?
Let's try. Seagulls are. Now, where are you looking? Oh, okay.
Never mind.
Let's see who's making all the noise there.
I think they want to.
Do you want to try?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
So, has everyone seen these bright colored kind of feathery things here?
I will try to zoom in.
Okay, tell me which one you're zoomed in on. Underneath my finger or over here?
Not now. It's not working. It never used to work. It just worked the other day. Okay. No. Okay. So I just see the whole thing from far away. So see what you can do.
Hopefully you can watch me poke, and they disappear. So that's that reaction of the worm to pull in and get away from a predator as part of their protection.
That's quick reflexes. Yeah. I don't know how much people can see from home, but.
There's also a really huge chitin here underneath this barnacle thing. That one's called a catty chitin. So the other ones were kind of hairy. That one's really smooth. So
okay. Beautiful colors. So you did touch on, you mentioned some of the negative effects they can have on economies, these invasive species that come in fowling communities. can you say a bit more about how it affects maybe some native species, the ecology of some native similar species?
So often with invasive species, there's two things that can happen is they can either compete directly with the native species. So for example, there's a European green crab that's come to our coast that everyone was very scared about them competing with our important commercial species like the red rock and the only the scientific name. Thank you, Dungeness crab, because it would directly compete with the food for them. The other thing that invasive species can do is they can eat all the native species as well, and that can really shift the whole ecosystem dynamic. So it has very different effects in different places. I hope you're enjoying the singing today.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
So what? Maybe we walk away from the gulls a little bit. Oh, I see a question here. I think it's I caught half of it. I think it's similar to what I was just going to ask Heidi. Jenny, do you mind reading out that question today?
Yes, I can. I have a question from Scott that is, are there any opportunities for citizen science with regarding to local invertebrates?
Oh, great question. Heidi loves her iNaturalist. I wonder if she's going to mention it.
iNaturalist is the best way right now to encourage citizen science. So it's a really neat application. You can get on any sort of smartphone and you take a picture and you upload it, and it gives you suggestions of what it could be, and then experts around the world and the science citizen science community or community science can discuss what animal they think it is. And it's actually directly informing research. So for example, there's a really important parks program going on right now that the Royal BC Museum has partnered with, where they're trying to document the biodiversity of all the parks in BC. So incredible work that you can contribute to there. And for example, I've been talking about invasive species and tunicates. I am publishing a paper with some colleagues about where this species is now distributed in the coast, because originally it was just here in the Salish Sea, and now it's pretty much all over the province. And we were able to add to our data set by looking at iNaturalist. So that's one of the best ways if you just want to stick your feet into learning a little bit more about invertebrates and science. That's a good start.
It's a really fun website too. You can just keep going and going once you get on there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Yeah, any other questions, Jenny? We'll maybe we'll move away from the gull a little bit.
The one thing that you were asking about, these invasive species coming in, one of the things that people can do themselves is if you own a boat, make sure before you move between any areas, if you take your boat out, clean it once a year. You want to keep it dry, you want to clean off everything, and you want to make sure you're not transporting things from one area to another. That's a really important, simple thing that you can do. So drain dry, something else. I forget the 3 Ds right now. But,
there's 3 Ds. Oh, I'm sure we could look it up. People can look it up.
Yeah,
3 Ds.
So that your boat isn't contributing to this as well. And so,
yeah. Yeah, good tip. Thank you so much, Heidi. This is fascinating. Who knew what's lurking underneath the surface?
Now
These beautiful I know.
Yeah.
So if there's not any more questions, I think we'll sign off. How are we doing in there, Jenny?
Yeah, we don't have any more questions at the moment. I'm just actually looking up to see what the three, I remember I used to go boating a lot. 3 Ds of cleaning boats.
Okay, we'll let Jenny pull that in.
Yeah, I apologize. I actually was part of the group that voted this.
You probably wrote it?
No, I didn't quite write it, but I definitely was part of the something drain dry.
Well, it's nice when the threes are usually easy to remember, and the 3 Ds.
Yeah.
Got it, Jenny? No.
I'll tell them, just while Jenny's looking that up, the tunicates that I was talking about, the violet tunicate and the golden star tunicate, one of the ways that they actually got to BC was aquaculture. So a long time ago, aquaculture used to be a lot different than it is now. So we didn't used to have the oyster that you eat in the restaurant most of the time here on our coast. It was actually from Japan on the other side of the Pacific coast. And when they started the aquaculture industry, they just would scoop up all the oysters off of the intertidal, slightly subtidal range, transport it all together, and then drop it here. And anything that was on the oysters or living in amongst the oysters would also make it here. And so that's actually how we got some of our invasive species along the North American Pacific coast, is with things like aquaculture. That's no longer done, but it's still introduced a lot of species, and the violet tunicate is one of those.
Okay. Huh.
I haven't found the 3D, but what I found is that it's clean, drain, dry. Clean is
There
not
you
a
go.
D, but yeah.
That's it. It wasn't 3Ds, and that's why it was throwing me off. Yeah.
Clean, drain, and dry.
Yes.
vessels,
Love
we
it.
have them.
And we also have another question. Is can fowling live in both freshwater and saltwater, or would they be different species?
They would be different species. So, yeah, marine animals are often not able to live in freshwater environments. There are some exceptions, especially in that kind of what we call the estuarine region, so where like rivers meet oceans. There's an example of an invasive species called an Asian clam that kind of lives in that habitat. And then freshwater, you can also have fowling as well. And there's, for the clean, drain, dry, it's really important for something called zebra mussels and quagga mussels. And they're freshwater mussels that do the same thing, but they have even more devastating effects in the freshwater lakes. And if you look that up, it's really important in our Great Lakes on the east coast of Canada. They've already had really negative effects there. So different species, but same sort of idea that we always want to be careful about introducing something new to an area that we don't know what its effects would be. And that applies to everything too. Like if you have, say, pets, an aquarium at home, say you've got some neat lizards, that sort of thing, and you're done with it, you don't just let it out into a nearby pond or a nearby forest, that sort of thing. So those are some smart, simple things that you can do to not contribute to this.
Yeah, it's amazing. We might think that it's not going to make much of an impact, but really, really does. Really does.
Yeah.
Jenny, I saw something flash by the screen there.
Yes, there was another question. Are there any brackish water areas on Vancouver Island?
Brackish.
Brackish.
Any brackish water areas on Vancouver Island?
Yes.
Where, Heidi?
Brackish.
And tell us what brackish is.
Brackish is basically anywhere salt water meets fresh water, so where rivers pour directly into oceans. So,
okay. So lots of places.
Lots of places. Yeah.
Like an estuary, is that considered brackish?
Yeah, usually that water is brackish. That area where it's not quite salty and the water's mixing is called brackish water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting question.
Yeah.
Thanks for the questions, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. That was really interesting, Heidi.
Oh.
I had no idea what to expect. So I'm going to flip the camera around if I can. Turn myself around. I'll have Heidi in the background there. I'll take my mask off. And thank you, everybody, for joining us again, and hope to see you in a couple of weeks for RBCM at Outside Sting. Check that one out on the website. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe. Bye-bye.